Hello students, welcome to Turito live classes. Myself A. Swagat. In this particular session, we will be learning about a topic that is digestive glands. So, whole of this session we will be looking into different types of digestive glands arranged in our alimentary canal, and we will look into the functioning of those digestive canals. So, let us begin with this. As I said, this is the topic of our understanding today, that is digestive glands. Okay. And then we would see that what is that we have done in the previous session. So, in the previous session we were looking into the structural and functional aspect of stomach. Okay. So, that is what we were looking into, following which we were looking into the detailed analysis of the small intestine, and we looked into the microscopic finger like projections, that is microvilli. So, we were looking into those finger like projections known as villi. That is what we have seen, and once done we continued with the topic of large intestine. What is the need of the large intestine and why is it needed, how it is functioning, those were the details we understood in this particular topic. Okay. So, that was all about the different parts of our alimentary canal. So, from past 2 sessions we are actually looking into the different parts of the alimentary canal. So, that is what I was aiming for. Now, in this particular session, current session, we will be looking into these objectives. So, in the current session what we are going to do is we will be looking into the actual digestive glands. These digestive glands are nothing but they are involved in actually they are involved in secreting the those chemicals or enzymes needed for digesting the components. So, digesting the food components. So, what we are consuming it, they are actually in complex form. So, when we consume them, we will be using our buccal cavity to chew regularly excuse me. So, we will be chewing it regularly, and then we will understand that that has turned into a form called bolus, where the chewed food is combined with the saliva, and that bolus is again digested. Now, when that we all say digestion. So, today we are going to look at the various structures, location, secretion and functioning of those digestive glands. So, mainly we will be focusing on the digestive glands, starting with salivary glands, then you will see the liver. Okay. Once done, we will be looking into the pancreas. So, these are the details what we will be understanding here, right. Now, so let us begin with the first one, that is salivary glands. So, before I begin with the salivary glands, I want you children to tell me what is your understanding about the salivary glands. What do you know about salivary glands? Whatever you know about salivary glands, you can drop in the chat box. So, why do we need it, or any information which you are aware of salivary glands, and that is more than good. Okay, that is correct. So, what you are saying is that salivary glands, that is what we said. Now, like you are mentioning about salivary glands, you say that salivary glands are involved in digesting carbohydrates. Okay, that is correct, right. So, can you tell me the types of salivary glands we have, that is based on the location? No, it is okay, fine, it's okay if you do not know, not a problem. Okay. So, what else happens? Is it only carbohydrates or what else is happening here? Okay, that is correct. So, salivary glands release an enzyme, okay, that is known as salivary amylase. Okay, that is what I see in the boxes. Okay. So, why we need it? And you are saying about this, which you have already learnt, right. So, we know with the help of this saliva we form the bolus. Okay. So, what happened to this bolus, that is a story we learnt. So, salivary amylase are also containing stuff which makes this carbohydrates to break down. So, based on your previous information, that is whatever you have learned in the lower classes, you can clearly tell me that the salivary glands are involved in doing such a functions, that is, they will be involved in making the bolus first of all, and we also need saliva so that we can speak properly, isn't it? You agree with that? Okay, I will write it properly, that is not good. So, salivary glands help us to speak, that is, they directly involved in helping us to in our speech, right. So, without saliva, I do not know if you have observed it or not, it is really difficult to speak without saliva, isn't it? You agree with that, children? Okay, that is good, right. So, that is correct. Without that, it is very difficult to understand. So, you have heard, like, when you are in the lower classes, that is starch is also broken down given that. So, do we have any difference between starch and carbohydrates? Any difference you find? Come on, give a try. Okay. So, some of them are saying they are different, some of you are mentioning that they are same. Okay. Yeah, okay, that is correct, they are actually same, but carbohydrate is actually the name of the food component, okay, and the example of that carbohydrate is starch. So, starch is basically present in the plants. So, plants synthesize it and we often get food from plants. Of course, we do get food from animals. Coming to starch, it is basically a complex carbohydrate. Right. So, it is a complex carbohydrate. So, that complex carbohydrate what you see here, okay, that is getting digested with the help of the salivary glands. As they release the salivary amylase or saliva, that is what we say, it contains an enzyme that is ptyalin that helps it to do the job of breaking down the carbohydrates. Okay. That is what you know so far. Let us have a look at the structure. So, when we look at the structure, now you can have a clear look at the structure. Okay. So, if you observe carefully here, I am going to show you there are different types of salivary glands are present. Can anyone tell me why they are different types? Yes, so at least by looking at it, few of you are able to answer me that. When you look at this particular structure, it is our buccal cavity. We have removed the other lateral side of our buccal cavity here and trying to show it. So, when you observe, there are different types, like you mentioned, because based on the region where the salivary glands are located, they are of different types. Got it? So, starting with this, you see this particular region what you are seeing, I am just encircling that for you. This is what is parotid gland. So, that is parotid salivary gland. Okay. Next, I would like to show you there is one more gland here, if you observe, that is this. Okay. This is known as sublingual gland. Okay. That is sublingual gland. Okay. Now, if you observe this particular gland, okay, it is located like this in the shape of a U. If you try to analyze it, it is actually placed like this, just under the tongue somewhere here. Okay, that is what they are trying to show us. So, that particular gland what you are looking at is submandibular gland. Got it? So, that is submandibular gland. So, that is why I was telling you there are 3 types of salivary glands located, and I have shown you this is the respective location of the salivary glands. It is for that reason they are of 3 different kinds, starting with parotid glands. I will write that here just for you. So, this is parotid gland. Okay. Next one is, you see, sublingual gland. The third one is this one, submandibular gland. So, that is sublingual gland. So, sublingual gland, and the third one is submandibular gland. Okay. This is the first thing what I wanted you to tell. So, the moment whenever you think of a food, that means you are not about thinking about the food, you are actually trying to remember the taste of that food by thinking, or when you see that food is just in front of you, okay, and then you try to understand, your mind will remember this food would be having this particular taste. Triggering that, we will tend to have that watery substance released into our mouth. Now, that happens because of these three glands, followed by what you have to understand is presence of different types of ducts. Hope you know the meaning of duct. I am writing here. When you see duct, duct is something, a tube like structure using which the secretions of the respective gland will be released. So, that is what a duct is. It is a tube like structure. Okay. Now, that is what we are seeing here. Now, firstly we saw that parotid gland. Okay. So, parotid gland releases its secretions using parotid duct. It is located here. So, I am encircling that parotid duct here for you. Okay, that is what is parotid duct. Okay. Starting with the other one, you observe submandibular duct. Okay, if you observe here carefully, this is what is submandibular gland, and it is having a duct here, that is this. Okay, that is this. And coming to the sublingual gland, it just releases like that. Okay. So, surely it is having a duct just under the tongue, it is a small opening. Okay. So, that is what is known as sublingual duct. Now, hope you understood, this is where you see the presence of the respective tube like structure for these glands, so that they can release their respective salivary amylase. Now, as I told you already, the salivary amylase contains an enzyme, that is ptyalin. That is what we know so far. Okay. Let me tell you something, we do have some other thing in that salivary amylase. Okay. Let us finish this first. Now, you see other muscles here, masseter muscle, we have buccinator muscle, there is a muscle here given. Okay. Mucous membrane, so that is what is actually cut here. So, this particular membrane, if you observe carefully, that is what is mucous membrane. Okay. So, ducts of sublingual gland, you see the sublingual gland ducts are like this. So, that is clearly just under the tongue. So, you see them, the sublingual gland is having multiple tube like arrangement in order to release their secretions. It is something here. I think I must use some other color for you. So, if you observe here, during these openings, if you can see, this is where we will find that the sublingual gland is trying to release its salivary amylase. So, hope you understood this. I think things are quite clear here. Okay. Now, what we will do is, we will move forward and we will try to explore what does these glands are doing here. So, most of the things what I want to cover is already covered here using this particular image, but we will be doing that using the theoretical concepts. So, parotid glands, the first one, it is present at the sides of the face, being the largest gland. That is one important thing one has to understand. Starting which we have sublingual glands under front part of the tongue. They are present under the tongue, that is what is sublingual. Okay. But they are just present, to the topmost or the front part of your tongue, just below that part you will find the presence of sublingual glands. Submaxillary glands, or we just understood them as mandibular glands. They are the ones you see, they lie at an angles on the lower jaw under the tongue. So, somewhere here you sense your saliva coming out into your mouth, somewhere here you can feel that. So, that is what is doing by this submaxillary glands or submandibular glands, right. So, that is one thing. So, if you see saliva, that is what it releases. It is a viscous fluid, the saliva itself is a viscous fluid. Now, I just want to, I do not know how many of you have experienced it, but I just want you to tell something. When we are sleeping, I do not know how many of you have experienced it. Sometimes, the saliva, oozes out of your skin, oozes out of your buccal cavity. Have you ever experienced it? If at all you have experienced it, it is like, when you are actually laid down on the bed and you are sleeping, and because of your different postures, when you put your head this side, that side, move it here and there, in deep sleep what happens? They get squeezed away. You get to see this viscous liquid coming out of it. And remember children, looking at it, I think you can make out whether it is alkaline or basic. I am sorry, whether it is acidic or alkaline. So, certainly it is less than 7, which means it is, our saliva is acidic in nature. So, remember this, 6.7 is just less than the neutral pH, okay. So, it is considered to be acidic, okay, and having about, we release about 1 to 1.5 liters of saliva per day. That is one thing we have to understand, 1 to 1.5 liters of saliva per day, that is what we release, right. Next, what does it contain? I told you about this, and anyway you know about this. It also contains salts and another substance called mucin. Hope you understood that. It also contains these things, salts and mucin. Now, what do they do? Our amylase, what I was saying, okay. So, amylase, the main one, is involved in carbohydrate digestion, salivary amylase, naturally that is involved in carbohydrate digestion, okay. Along with that we have lysozyme, another substance which is released by the saliva, it is already present in that saliva, it is released there. When it is releasing, it is having an important function, you see, lysing bacteria. So, what happens here is this lysozyme, which is an integral component of the saliva, and it is having a specific property of lysing bacteria, that means it is actually splitting the bacteria if at all it is present in your food. That means it is actually trying to break apart the body of the bacteria if in case by chance that bacteria is entering your food, right. So, that is one thing. So, hope you understood that. This is in short about the digestive gland, one of the new food component digestive gland, that is saliva. We looked at its structure in detail, okay. I just explained to you different labelings of the structure involving 3 different types of salivary glands, parotid glands, submandibular glands or submandibulary glands. So, sorry, sublingual glands and submandibular gland. Here in the previous discussion I was telling this one is also known as maxillary gland. So, it is the same. So, some of you might be having that confusion, right. So, it is the same. So, you see that parotid glands, they are the largest one present at the sides of the faces, and you see the sublingual glands just present under the front part of our tongue, okay. Then submaxillary or submandibular glands, known as, they are basically lying at the angles of our lower jaw, somewhere here, I was telling you that, okay. So, under the tongue. So, we see that saliva is having a pH of 6.7, and for a day we release 1 to 1.5 liters of saliva, and it has water, mucin, salt and ptyalin. Along with that, it is the amylase and the lysozyme helps in digestion of the food. So, following which, liver. What is your understanding about liver? Whatever you know about liver, you can drop in here quickly. Okay. So, you say that liver is the largest gland. Okay, if you say so, I will put it here. Liver is the largest gland. Okay. What next? So, liver is the largest gland and it helps in doing what? Okay, based on your understanding, you say it gives us bile juice. So, because you know it, that you have learnt it earlier, and we also discussed that in brief in the previous session, right, bile juice. Okay. Okay, I see you are saying that it is having a link with, just a moment. Is having a link with gallbladder, correct. So, bile juice, what is made by this liver, is stored in the gallbladder, that is why it is having a connection there. Okay. Okay. So, one more thing I want to tell you here is, liver also helps in detoxification. Detoxification of the substances what we consume. If at all there are some drugs present inside the body, the blood passes through the liver and make sure that blood gets neutralized with those toxins if at all they are present. So, that is why if you look at the blood, sorry, if you look at the liver, liver is having a reddish brown in color because it has excessive supply of the blood vessels. So much of blood goes into it and comes back. Okay, that is one thing. One more thing what I want to tell you is, liver is having a specific, blood vessel having a link with the stomach, hepatoportal duct. This is the only blood vessel which is actually connecting the stomach with that of the liver. You will not see that any other type of blood vessels connecting here, linking with the heart or the lungs or something like that. It is not like that, only this liver and the stomach gets linked up. So, let us finish here, start with that. Like I mentioned, it is having a reddish brown color, and I also just mentioned the reason, that it is given with full of blood vessels and blood passes through this liver, makes sure that it gets detoxified. So, it secretes a substance called bile with a pH of 7.6. What does this mean? What does that mean? If the pH is 7.6, so the nature of the bile juice, the chemical nature of the bile juice is basic, because the pH is quite above the neutral value. So, you see, it is actually, the bile juice is the yellowish green alkaline solution. So, alkaline is referring to basicity or basic. Okay. So, it is a basic solution, and because our body is having more than 65% of water, you see that 89% to 98% of it is water. So, the presence of that yellowish and green color is due to the presence of so many things. So, per day we get to have 600 ml of bile released into the our body, I mean into the gallbladder, so that it helps in emulsification of fat, if you remember that. Emulsification of fat. So, it helps in doing that functions, emulsification of fat. For that we need bile juice, okay, and it has to be basic, and you see the quantity 600 ml per day, that is the amount of the bile released in our body per day. Okay. So, hope you understood that in short. Now, I would like to show you the structure of the bile, I am sorry liver. Here are we. So, when you look at a liver, you have been looking at it since quite a long time, okay, and there are few labelings in different color. I will show you their labeling, what are they, if at all you are unable to see that. Now, if you observe carefully, the liver is having two different lobes. Okay. One more lobe starts up here, that is the way how it is. So, that is the thing. So, you see that it is having a right lobe of liver and the left lobe of liver. And I was just mentioning about something, liver is having a link with the stomach, right, I just told you that. Now, here it is quite different, you see it is having a hepatic duct of liver, but this duct is having link with the stomach somewhere here. You see that green color duct, that is one thing. Okay. Now, there is a gallbladder. So, this gallbladder, it actually acts as a storage pouch for bile. So, gallbladder acts as the storage pouch of bile, it needs that. Okay. And you will see there are other ducts coming here, that is cystic duct. So, that is the cystic duct you are looking at. Okay. That is a cystic duct, and you see there is a duodenum. So, this is the structure is actually the duodenum, the first part of the small intestine, that is the duodenum. So, this is what a liver would look like, okay. And you have other organs available here clearly, that is this particular leaf like organ what you are seeing here is actually the pancreas. Okay. So, this is if you think it as an animal, you see it is a head, and this is the body part, and this whole stuff at the end is the tail. This whole structure we collectively call them as pancreas. Okay, that is the arrangement. Now, we have a common bile duct, and everything you see it just drops into the duodenum, and it is in the duodenum. If you remember, it is in the duodenum. We just learned in the previous session that the complete digestion of the food component occurs there. Got it? That is where you see the complete digestion of the food components happens there. So, that is what is the right lobe of liver, left lobe of liver, right. So, this is what in all about the structure liver. Now, when the digestion is started here in the duodenum, you see that this is where the digestion just occurs. Now, when the digestion is completed in the duodenum, you would see that the digested components would further pass through this region, and this is what is the jejunum. Hope you know what is jejunum. Can you drop in the chat box what is jejunum? Correct. So, I see here some of you are dropping in that the jejunum as the second most part of the small intestine. Okay. So, it is moderately coiled, that is what we learned in the previous session, if you remember that. So, that jejunum followed by the ileum, which is the longest part of the small intestine, having a length of 3.5 meters. So, this is in whole about this particular one. So, without the presence of bile, we cannot expect the fats to get digested. So, before if the fats are to be digested, the fat lobules or components are to be mixed up with the bile, so that they can undergo a process called emulsification. I am writing it again for you. Emulsification of fats. What do you think? Why it is required emulsification of fat before the digestion? what I want to tell you is, if the fats are not emulsified, let us say, it is really difficult for the, actually kind of impossible for the fats to get digested. We are trying to emulsify them by adding with bile juice. So, what is happening here? Any guesses? Any guess? Okay. So, it is quite simple that I see some of you dropping in the responses saying that gastric juice released in the stomach. So, let me write it here. So, we have gastric juice released in the stomach, right. So, gastric juice released in the stomach has different components, that is HCl. Okay. So, you know it has the gastric juices, okay, and it has the mucus. So, I had to write here, write them here, okay, just observe. So, gastric juice released in the stomach, okay, HCl is given out and mucus, right. So, when you see here HCl is available, hope you are aware of the pH of the HCl. Can you guess the pH of the HCl? Okay, great. So, the pH of the HCl is quite simple, you know, it is highly acidic one, and you see the pH will be as close as pH 1 or 1 pH. Okay. Now, when you see that is the pH, certainly all these components would be highly acidic, right. Now, when you see the pH of the bile, if you remember, it was just above the pH, yeah, it was just above the pH, just a moment, I wrote wrong, okay. Okay. The bile was having a pH of 7.6, so it is a lot of contrast here, 7.6 and 1, so try to look here. So, 1 is highly acidic, 7.6 is comparatively highly basic, right. Now, if that is the case, we have to change the medium of the action. Earlier it is acidic in pH. So, in the acidic medium your bile will not function, your fats emulsification is quite difficult. So, they have to, you know, fat digestion is difficult. So, the acidic component when it is coming here, that is when it is falling in the duodenum, then we have to make sure that the pH should be dropped below 7, I am sorry, more than 7, that is when it is basic. So, pH has to be increased to more than 7, so that it will be basic, and that is when we will see that emulsification of fats is done. Now, it is that point of time when you see that the fats emulsification is successful, followed by the fat digestion. So, that is what happens there. So, let us have a look here of the composition of the bile juice. It has inorganic salts composed of bicarbonates, chlorides, carbonates, phosphates of sodium, potassium and calcium. So, it has so many salts, so many means so many. So, it is just about leaving the 89 to 98 percentage of water, whatever is mixed in that is all these inorganic salts, bile salts and fatty substances. That is what is giving us the yellowish green color. So, you see inorganic salts we saw. So, bile salts, if you see, it is required for the conversion of large fat droplets into smaller ones. So, that is the reason why we are taking these bile salts and emulsification is done. Understood? That is why the emulsification is done, followed by fatty substances which actually contain cholesterol, lecithin and other phospholipids. So, bile salts also contain fatty substances, they are needed there. Okay. So, inorganic salts, we have bile pigments. So, you see that is the reason why it is having this color bilirubin and biliverdin, they are having green yellowish and green color respectively. So, the remaining components, when you see, these are the present things inside the bile juice, you will see that 89% to 98% is just water. So, inside the bile juice you see 89 to 98% would be our water, and the remaining components are our inorganic salts, bile salts, fatty substances and bile pigments, right. So, you see biliverdin and bilirubin and biliverdin are required inside. So, they are all functioning as a unit in order to emulsify the fat and aids in fat digestion. That is how they function. So, hope you understood the composition of bile salts, bile juice. Okay, so let us move forward. Now, our discussion does not end there up to bile. We will be looking into another structure called pancreas. Now, it is a 2.5 centimeter wide organ with a length of 12 to 15 centimeter. So, that is what is all about our pancreas, 2.5 centimeter wide, okay, that is 1 inch, approximately 1 inch, and you see it is having a length of 12 to 15 centimeter long. You use a small ruler, the ruler having a length of 15 centimeter, that is how long it would be at max. And the pH of the pancreatic juice, excuse me. So, you learnt in previous discussion, it is also releasing the pancreatic juice with a pH of 8.4. What does this mean? Having a pH of 8.4, again this is basic. So, it is having a basic nature with a volume of around 500 to 800 milliliters per day. So, you have to understand one thing, children. If you think of the bile juice, it is released for about 600 ml, and this is released around 500 to 800 ml. So, one thing is worthwhile to mention here, if you understand, bile is also basic, and even the pancreas, they release the pancreatic juice, that is also basic. Now, this basic components, two of them, and that too in high quantity, is more than enough to neutralize the chyme, which is actually a acidic in medium. And there is a chyme coming into the duodenum, you see that having this particular way, and you can understand that having 500 or 800 milliliters per day. So, it is around, if you add them, that comes out to be around 1.3 to 1.4 milliliters of the component, makes the acidic component into basic, and you see that is why it is helping digestion of starch, protein and nucleic acids and fats. So, this is one good reason this pancreatic juice is known as complete digestive juice. It is also known as complete digestive juice. Yeah, see. So, therefore, the pancreatic juice is also called as complete digestive juice, because it has such a big ability, which you will not find in any other digestive gland releasing the substances having the ability to digest all the three types of food components. So, when I say starch, that means it is able to digest carbohydrates. You see protein is already given there, fats is given there. So, what else we need? That is a one point substance here, which is able to digest the three different components of our food. Starting with carbohydrates, it digests proteins, it also takes good action on fats. So, certainly our bile and the pancreatic juice would function together to take good care of the fats. Whatever fat components we consume, they get digested easily because of this. Now, you might be wondering about one doubt, if I am not wrong. Excuse me, children. So, you might be wondering about one doubt, that is, you might think when we got our proteins digested in the stomach, we got our starch got digested in the mouth, that is in the buccal cavity. why do we need such a substance here, right? You might be thinking like that. Well, I will tell you. When we consume food, okay, you, especially children, even adults, what they do is when they are trying to swallow it, okay, sometimes they do not chew properly. Without chewing properly, they swallow it, okay, or improper chewing leads to improper digestion of the components at the respective regions, starting from buccal cavity. You know, our carbohydrates are to be digested, but it is not happening. When it comes to stomach, all the protein components has to be digested, again it is not happening completely. If that case, you know, if they are not chewed properly or something. When it comes to fats, the same problem. So, to avoid that, to make sure the digestion is complete, pancreatic juice is there, and that keeps the ability to digest all the types of food components. Are we done with the pancreas, or did we leave something else? Any guesses? Okay, let us move forward. I will tell you something here. Pancreas, there is something else to discuss. What is that? Correct. So, I see some of the students are dropping here saying that it helps in controlling sugar, or in other words, some of you already dropped saying that blood sugar. Okay. Yeah, I see students dropping continuously. You are saying that it is also involved in putting down the blood glucose only when it is high. So, when the blood level is high, blood sugar or blood glucose level is very high in our body, that is when you see the pancreas acting. When they act, how do they act? Do they act with pancreatic juice, or what is that they act on with? Give a guess. Okay. So, I am getting responses. It is quite simple. So, we need to have this insulin. So, pancreas basically they have different types of cells available in them. Let me write that. Okay. I would use some other color for you. So, one type of cells are known as alpha cells, another type of cells are known as beta cells. That is what is available in the pancreas. Now, you would see the alpha cells, they release a sort of hormone called glucagon. Okay. When it comes to beta cells, they release another hormone called insulin. So, this insulin, you know, that is mainly involved in decreasing the blood glucose, okay, and the glucagon is mainly involved in increasing the blood glucose. So, this is an extra information which I wanted to give you, right. So, this is in short about this what we have left, the substances secreted by the pancreas. So, let us move forward here. So, as I mentioned earlier, this is what is the pancreas would look like. That is the structure of the pancreas, and that is how it looks like. Okay. So, there are other parts, as you can see, duodenum is available, we have seen the gallbladder, the bile duct, the liver we have seen, you know the stomach and the small intestine, right. So, these are the parts in short. I just wanted you to see the pancreas. Okay. By the way, those cells what I was referring to, just a moment, I was referring to alpha cells and beta cells, right. These are alpha cells released by pancreas, beta cells released by pancreas, I said, is not it. Now, these cells are collectively known as islets of Langerhans. These alpha cells, beta cells are known as islets of Langerhans. Apart from these alpha and beta cells, they also release delta cells, and there are other type of cells also, okay, which are not of our concern as of now. So, let us look forward. So, whatever organs we have learned, we see almost all of them are available here except one organ. Okay. So, this is an extension of the esophagus. So, this is what is our digestive system. Okay. So, you see how sophisticatedly the things, all our organs are arranged. Okay. That is quite simply you can see here. So, in the upcoming session we would be using the same structure, that is the digestive system, in order to understand the digestive process or digestion process. Got it? So, hope you understood the discussion what we had as of now. So, let us summarize what we have dealt so far. So, looking at it, we looked at the different dimensions of the and the functional aspects of the various digestive glands, starting with the effect of the medium of the liver, and we also discussed about the functions of various juices released by the glands, such as salivary gland releases salivary amylase, bile releases bile juice, pancreas releases pancreatic juice, right. And we also looked at as a whole how the digestive system would look like. So, hope you enjoyed the session. So, we will be meeting in the upcoming session, we will discuss further more details. Thank you so much.